Some stories don't begin with screams of blood. They begin with silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. In 2017, a man named Caleb Turner took a temporary night job in Nevada. The listing was strange. No company name, no clear job description, just one line that stood out more than the rest: must be comfortable working alone at night. The pay was high enough to make him ignore the unease he felt while reading it. The location was a private storage facility miles away from the nearest town. Desert on all sides, no neighbors, no street lights. When Caleb arrived for his first shift, the sun was already setting, and the building looked older than it should have been. Concrete walls, no windows, a single metal door. Inside, there were security monitors lining one wall and a small desk with a chair that creaked when he sat down. His supervisor didn't shake his hand. He didn't even smile. He just handed Caleb a clipboard and said, "There are only 3 rules. Follow them exactly." Caleb listened. He nodded. He wrote them down. But the 3rd rule stayed with him long after the supervisor left. If you see someone on the cameras after 12:30 a.m., pretend you didn't. The first few nights were quiet. Too quiet. Just empty corridors, locked storage units, and the hum of electricity. Caleb tried to convince himself the rule was just corporate paranoia. Maybe they didn't want guards confronting trespassers. Maybe it was a liability thing. Then came the night. Camera 12 went offline. It happened at exactly 12:47 a.m. The screen froze, flickered, and went black. Caleb logged it, just like he was told. When the feed returned, the image looked normal at first. Same dirt path, same empty desert, except for the footprints, bare footprints pressed into the sand, leading straight toward the camera. No shoes, no tire tracks, just feet. The next morning, Caleb received a message from his supervisor. It was short, cold. "Don't log that again." No explanation. 2 nights later, camera 12 went dark again. This time, when it came back, someone was standing there. A man close enough that Caleb could see his face clearly. He wasn't moving. He wasn't blinking. He was just standing there, staring directly into the lens. The man looked sick. Pale skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His eyes were sunken, rimmed with dark shadows. And he was smiling, not wide, not friendly, just enough to show his teeth, as if it hurt to do it. Caleb felt his stomach drop. His hand hovered over the radio, but the rule echoed in his head. If you see a person after 12:30, pretend you didn't. So he did nothing. At 12:58 a.m., he heard the sound. 3 slow knocks. Not on the door, on the wall behind him. Caleb froze. The knocks weren't loud. They weren't aggressive. They were patient. Like whoever was making them knew there was no need to hurry. Every monitor lit up at once. On every screen, the same man appeared. Closer on each camera, as if moving without actually walking. On the final monitor, his face filled the screen completely. His lips moved. He said Caleb's name. The power went out. Complete darkness. No monitors, no lights, no sound. Exactly 1 minute later, everything came back on everything except camera 12. That screen stayed black. Caleb didn't sleep the next day. He sent an email resigning immediately. The response came back seconds later. You weren't supposed to acknowledge him. That night, unable to shake the feeling that something had followed him home, Caleb searched the facility's address online. There was nothing official, No company website, no records, just old forum posts from locals, buried deep people talking about missing night workers, temporary hires, guards, janitors, people who worked late and were never seen again, all near the same land, all quietly forgotten. Against his better judgment, Caleb went back one final time to collect his belongings. He told himself it would be quick, in and out. At 12:29 a.m., everything was normal. At 12:30, every camera froze except one camera. 12 turned on, the man was back. But this time, he wasn't smiling, he was crying. Tears ran down his hollow face as he pressed his hand against the camera lens, leaving a smear on the glass. Behind him, the darkness shifted. Figures began to appear, dozens of them men. Women, shapes that looked human, but stood wrong, like they had forgotten how bodies were supposed to work. They didn't move forward. They didn't need to. Text appeared on the screen, "We keep the night running." The knocking started again. This time, it was on the door. Caleb ran. He didn't grab his bag. He didn't turn around. He ran until the desert burned his lungs and the building disappeared behind him. 2 weeks later, the facility shut down without explanation. The land was sold. The records vanished. Caleb never worked nights again. He says that sometimes, when everything is quiet, he hears 3 slow knocks, not on the door, not on the wall, but inside the room, waiting. Because some jobs don't end when you quit, and some nights never let you leave. In 2019, a man named Eric Nolan started working as a late-night cleaner at a regional hospital in Missouri. It wasn't a big hospital, just large enough to feel empty at night. Long hallways, dim lights, doors that stayed closed. Eric worked the overnight shift because it paid more and asked fewer questions. He was given a badge, a cart of supplies, and one instruction that stood out more than the rest. Stay out of Ward C after midnight. Ward C was still on the map, still labeled, still powered. But according to staff, it had been closed years ago. The first few nights, Eric followed the rule. He cleaned floors, emptied bins, and avoided the corridor that led to Ward C. The place felt normal enough, unsettling, in the way hospitals always are after dark, but nothing unusual. Until one night, while mopping near the nurse's station, he heard it. A call bell, not the electronic kind, an old mechanical bell. It rang once, then stopped. Eric checked the time. 12:14 a.m. He ignored it. The next night, it rang again. Same bell, same single ring. This time, it came from the direction of Ward C. Eric reported it to the night supervisor. The man didn't look surprised. "Sometimes the building settles," he said. "Just don't answer it." That was enough to make Eric uncomfortable. A few nights later, the bell rang 3 times in a row. Eric froze. Hospitals have a rhythm at night. Machines hum, air vents breathe. But this sound didn't belong. It was asking for attention. Eric followed the sound without realizing he had made the decision. The hallway lights dimmed as he walked. The air grew colder. The floor signs stopped appearing. He reached the doors to Ward C. They weren't locked. Inside, the ward was clean. Too clean. Beds lined up perfectly. Curtains drawn. Machines unplugged, but neatly arranged. The bell rang again. Right behind him, Eric turned. A patient sat up in one of the beds. He hadn't seen anyone enter. The man was thin, pale, hospital gown hanging loosely from his shoulders. His eyes were open but unfocused. He pressed the call button again. Eric stepped back, heart pounding. "I'll get someone," he said. The man shook his head slowly. "Too late," he whispered. More beds began to move. Curtains shifted. Shapes sat up in the darkness. Eric ran. He didn't look back. He didn't wait for the elevator. He took the stairs, two at a time, until he burst into the main lobby. The bell stopped. Eric quit the next morning. No exit interview, no questions. 3 months later, Eric was admitted to the same hospital after a car accident. Minor injuries, overnight observation. His room assignment was changed twice. Finally, a nurse apologized and said, "We're short on space tonight." They wheeled him down a familiar hallway. The lights dimmed. The sign read, "Ward C." Eric tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. As they rolled him inside, he heard the bell ring. Once. Some patients never really leave the hospital. They just stop being counted. In 2014, a woman named Lauren Hayes moved to a small town in Ohio after her divorce. She didn't want anything dramatic, just quiet. Somewhere, no one knew her name. She found a small apartment above an old public library. The rent was cheap. The landlord was polite, but distant. He mentioned only one thing before handing her the keys. "The building is closed at night. Always." Lauren worked from home, so nights were usually silent. Too silent. No traffic, no voices, just the hum of the heater and the ticking of the clock on her wall. On her third night there, she heard a sound that didn't belong. Pages turning. It came from below her apartment. The library? She checked the time. 11:43 p.m. The library had been closed for hours. She ignored it at first, assuming it was the building settling. Old places make noise. That's what she told herself. The next night, it happened again. Pages got slow, deliberate, like someone was taking their time, reading. This time, she went downstairs. The library lights were off. The front door was locked from the inside. Dust coated the tables. No signs of anyone being there. Still, the smell hit her immediately. Old paper, damp air, and something else. Something stale. She went back upstairs and locked her door. From that night on, the sounds came every night. Always after 11:30. Always the same rhythm. Page after page after page. Lauren emailed the landlord. His reply was short. "Do not go into the library at night. No explanation." A week later, Lauren noticed something strange. Every morning, a book appeared on the table outside her apartment door. No note, no library stamp, just old books. The titles were unsettling. Local disappearances, 1989. Unclaimed records, closed investigations. She didn't remember touching them. She didn't remember opening her door. But the books kept coming. One night, curiosity won. She opened one. Inside were handwritten notes in the margins. Names got dates, addresses, all from the same town. Some of the names were crossed out. Others weren't. Lauren found her own name written lightly in pencil on the last page. She slammed the book shut. That night, the page turning stopped. Instead, she heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, heavy, coming up. She held her breath in the dark, watching the gap under her door. Light appeared beneath it. A shadow passed. Then a voice spoke. "Calm. Close. Your chapter isn't finished yet." The next morning, Lauren packed her bags and left without telling anyone. She didn't wait for daylight. She didn't return the keys. The apartment was listed for rent again within a week. Months later, Lauren received a package with no return address. Inside was a single book. Its cover was blank. On the first page were words written neatly in ink. Final volume. Lauren never opened it. But sometimes, late at night, she swears she hears pages turning, even when there are no books in the room. Because some places don't want visitors, they want authors.